I went out of my way to compare Rainbow Six Siege's Google Trends results to Valorant's Google Trends results, and what I found was kind of interesting. Over the course of its lifetime, the regions in which search traffic for Rainbow Six Siege were most popular consisted of Indiana, Nevada, Kentucky, Arizona, and Ohio. Now, I know a lot of European or Australian fans watching the video will probably wonder if this is useful information. Well, it's worth pointing out because in the United States, we have a pretty diverse range of cultures and identities. In a way, our individual states end up taking on their own flavors that could make them countries in a way. It's just that a lot of us speak English, and historically it made sense for us to be a part of a republic. So when you compare Rainbow Six Siege's search traffic to, say, Valorant's, it paints a different picture because Valorant's most searched states consist of California, Hawaii, Nevada, Washington State, and Maryland. States where Siege is pretty popular, like my home West Virginia, deliver some of the worst traffic for Valorant. And I don't think that's a coincidence. I think there is a distinct reason for this. I think a lot of Siege players will genuinely just not touch Valorant if you paid them to do it, because the game is not only mechanically different from Siege, but also thematically different. Valorant's a very modern game for a modern age with a techie, colorful, anime-ish kind of art style, reminiscent of stuff like, well, Riot's very popular Netflix show, Arcane. It's a deliberate design choice to hit a metric, a younger urban metric that finds this kind of stuff appealing, and in rural America, it's just not as easy of a sell. Now, some of you might think I've gone completely insane trying to describe the rural versus urban cultural gap and using it to explain the difference between Rainbow Six Siege and Valorant, but the data speaks for itself. I'm not making the data up. I'm just coming up with a theory to explain it. And I might not be totally on the mark, but I think I am in the ballpark. Rainbow Six Siege had perfect timing in the market in 2015 where its gritty, tactical kind of flair as a SWAT shooter was still in style, but it was on its way out in terms of style. American sentiment towards deployment in countries abroad is at an all-time low, and navigating conversations concerning policing and firearms has become increasingly chaotic. Ubisoft doesn't want to gut this profitable license, but they also want to take the analytically sound approach to marketing their games. And I think a lot of TacticalBro shooter fans see this writing on the wall and take the introductions of characters like Azami as an affront to it because they feel like it's a signal for the game going in a direction they didn't initially buy into. I will admit the game has gone through a great deal of thematic change since 2015. Does this affect me personally? No, not really. I don't really care. 7 years is a long time, and people often don't want to admit that they are living through history. The times are a-changing for shooter games in the current gaming landscape. I think a common counterargument to this claim would be Call of Duty. The reboot embraced tactical bro elements, like missions to depict a realistic SWAT raid on a house, and a mission that totally doesn't resemble a redacted embassy in Redacted. Call of Duty took the opposite approach. They leaned into it, and I think they did a good job and made a good game as a result, but even Call of Duty isn't immune to this effect. Call of Duty Vanguard is the most immediate example. Nobody will do World at War ever again. Nobody will do a gritty, authentic World War II shooter for a mainstream audience ever again, because doing it correctly is fucking dark and bleak. War is fucking dark and bleak. Now, if we're going to do World War II, we're going to put a modern California corporate coat of paint on it to make shareholders happy. It's going to resemble a bad action movie and play everything completely safe. We're not going to get into the morally dubious stuff. For reference, this was the song that played at the end of a German victory in Call of Duty World at War multiplayer. And that's literally Hitler giving the player a good job speech for achieving victory. Can you imagine if this shit came out now? Holy fuck. If this isn't an indicator of the culture change around this genre of gaming, I don't know what else is. Instead of swastikas being in the campaign being a complete duh, because it's a World War II game, there are Nazis. Vanguard used, we're putting swastikas in the campaign as a selling point to tell you it's going to be a hardcore experience, man. We're talking World War II. It had Nazis in it. Isn't that totally fucking radical and edgy, man? That's fucking gnarly, dude. Like, no shit. Am I supposed to be impressed by you doing this? It's a World War II game. Now, if I had more money than I knew what to do with, like these assholes, I'd tell the company, we're going to do something completely different. Instead of repacking the shit that's already been done and try to tell people how cool and modern we are, because there is a woman from the Soviet Union fighting on the Western Front for no fucking reason. I would have said, let's take a story from this real time period that a modern audience could find interesting. I would have totally been down with an Italian resistance fighter campaign. Hell, if you want to hit the mark of having a female protagonist, there you go. Plenty of resistance fighters were women, badass chicks that could shoot and spit and cuss with the boys. Many of the Italian resistance members were pretty hardcore leftists. You could have had some interesting commentary that most of your tactical nerds wouldn't have even gotten mad about because it was historically authentic. Maybe have a scene like an Italian resistance leader could say something to an American soldier working alongside them along the lines of, you're here to fight our enemies, and we're grateful for that, but don't get it twisted. We have a different idea of how we're going to run our country when this is over. And of course, the American character is probably not 100% in agreement with a lot of this guy's ideas, but it doesn't matter because they have more pressing matters to attend to. Now, don't get me wrong. It would take a good writer to pull this off without getting preachy or cringe about it, but it would at least be better than what we got. World War II is littered with interesting narratives of complicated political and moral motivations. Shit, Finland teamed up with Germany to fight the Soviet Union. Then Germany got mad and invaded Finland after they made it evident they wouldn't play ball. Finland literally fought an allied and an Axis power in the same freaking war. Why is nobody doing anything with this? It's an authentic series of events that gives a writing team a lot of room to make a unique and compelling story that a current audience would find interesting. Companies are trying to find a way to navigate this climate and retain the audience they've already grown, but they fail to meet the mark because the products they put out often look fake and forced. And as a result, gamers with good bullshit detectors realize that this writing team is clearly lying. So the sales reflect that. My point is culture is changing and the media we consume is changing too. Yes, as Emp Lemon puts it.
And yeah, I get it. All art is political. It is absolutely vital that we dissect the socioeconomic themes of Shrek's Swamp Cart. But what you may not realize is that most people play video games as a means of escapism.
But when you take themes that are intrinsically linked with political iconography and topics you're not going to get away from, I hate to break it to you, you guys, reality and art imitate each other. Even Elden Ring has a lot of commentary revolving around religion in general, especially seen through a Western Judeo-Christian sense. But that's a video that won't do well in my algorithm for another time. I think Rainbow Six Siege is in a unique crossroads, trying to retain the authentic elements of its past while also trying to stay relevant, and that's not an easy thing for Ubisoft to do. Of course, people will hold on to this and sort of see Siege as a last bastion against the crimson tide of communist anime gun game. Believe it or not, I consider myself a pretty apolitical person. I'm more interested in people than politics, and Siege, in my opinion, is a game worth fighting for because at least the concept of all these people working together to solve a problem is a noble one. Whether or not the game continues to thrive in an increasingly heated environment remains to be seen.